offering first. Okay, we have 4 volunteers. Where are they? We already have 4 people, I believe. I guess not. I don't see them standing. Okay, let's get 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Have you done before?
She has.
Okay. There we go. Yeah, you come. Okay, let's pray. Dear Lord, we just thank you for another day. Thank you for the many blessings we have. Thank you for another beautiful day. Thank you for all the children that have come. Just help them to be able to learn of you and remember what they learned. Just be with the one that gives. And just be with Doug, that you might put to you for his back. In Jesus' name we pray. Okay, we're going to do it just a little different this morning. So Catherine's going to come up and tell us the story first. Then we'll have announcements and 5th grade up can go to their class. So.
Didn't give me much time to get ready. Good morning. So, Flanagan had just run up to Joe and said, "Come, my boys have been poisoned by poison berries. Come pray." Okay. Joe had done lots of medical stuff, but never poison berries. And these boys were miserable. They were throwing up. They were having diarrhea. She prayed for them, and they were healed. What? Flanagan wasn't a bit surprised. That's what God said in his word. If you're sick, pray. All righty then. God kept surprising Joanne. One day she had been gone for a visit. She came back home, and everyone was around chatting, and one of the spirit mediums named Choronag from one of the outlying villages had come in, and he was sitting on the lawn chairs. They only had 2 seats. So the oldest, most respected people got to sit on the seat. And he was sitting there, and everybody was talking, and finally he tapped Joanne on the shoulder, and she was, whoa. In the Balangu culture, men didn't tap women on the shoulder. And he said, can you tell me how to become a child of God? Huh, yeah, sure. So Joanne told him, and she said, are you ready to pray? And she bowed her head. But Choronag didn't know that you were supposed to bow your head and close your eyes to pray. He looked up at God and he said, God, I'm Choronag. I'm a Balangu, and I've been serving the Spirit. He went on for 10 minutes explaining to God who he was and how bad he'd been, and asking God to come into his heart and change him, that he wanted to give his allegiance to God. And the church there kept growing, and the older men in the Belengu culture, they looked up to the older men, and so these older men would take leadership, and Joanne would tell them, you know, if there's spirits going on, you need to make sure that you don't have any sin in your life, and then you can ask Jesus to take the evil spirits away. And but one day they came running to Joanne with a little boy named Balthazar. He was unconscious. They said Balthazar was with his grandpa, who was offering a pig to the spirits. And Balthazar, he was only 5 years old. He cut off one of the pig's ears, and he was playing with it. And the evil spirit said, "We want our ear back." And he didn't give it back. And they said, "Okay, fine. We'll take you instead." And the little boy went unconscious. And the parents grabbed him up and came running to Joanne, and she prayed for him. And the other elders that were around prayed for him, and they took him home. And then Joanne heard this cry. Clear, melancholy, rising, falling. Oh no, Balthazar died? What? God, what are you doing? People are going to stop believing in you. Do you think that's what happened? No, the Christians gathered around Balthazar's family, and they loved on them, and they helped them, and by the end of the week, all of Balthazar's family became Christian. What? Sometimes I just can't figure God out. But God will answer any prayer that brings him glory. And I'm not in charge of God's glory. But there was one thing that the Belengu people did not seem to understand how to do. And that was praying about everyday stuff. Like they would pray to become a Christian, and Joanne would pray at meals, until one day when Amma was reading in 1 Timothy, and it says, "I want men everywhere to pray, lifting up holy hands." At supper that night, when Joanne went to pray, he said, "I will do the praying now." And so Amma started praying at meals. But they wouldn't pray like if they had a problem. And Joanne that bothered her. Like one time they had locusts come in. You know what locusts are, right? Big clouds of grasshoppers. 35 years before, they had had this black cloud of locusts that had totally wiped out their crop. And so this year, when the locusts came in, the Belengus ran out and they started pounding on gongs and yelling and trying to scare the locusts away. But they didn't pray. Afterwards, she asked them, "Why didn't you pray about the locusts?" "Oh, we didn't think about that we should pray about that." And so when the next letter that Joanne was writing home from the mission station, about once a month, she would leave the little town with the Bengalus and go back out to the Wycliffe mission station, and she'd type letters home to her supporters, and she'd say what was happening. And she said, "One thing that bothers me is I wish the Belengus would know how to pray." She had been waking up at night saying, "God, whatever you need to do to teach the Belengus to pray, would you please do it? They need to learn to pray." But Joanne had to stop her letter because it was time for her helicopter ride back to the village. She was so excited about this helicopter ride because, you know, I told you that Joanne used to do like the medical stuff. She didn't like doing the medical stuff back in the village, but she was the only person they had. And she didn't like that it took so much time out of her translating. And so she was excited when this guy named Dr. Robbie Lynn, who was a Filipino, had decided that he was going to go back in there and practice medicine back in there. They'd gotten donations, and they were going to build a hospital. She was so excited. And this helicopter was called a Jolly Green Giant. it was from the United States Army. We had been fighting in Vietnam, and for some reason, they had a helicopter there in the Philippines. And Dr. Lim had said, hey, would you guys be able to carry the building materials back there? Because, you know, you're not going to carry all that through that 2-day trail hike, right? And so they said, sure, we can do that. And the Jolly Green Giant, I mean, it was a big helicopter. It was 10 tons of cement, no problem. So they loaded up the cement and the roofing and the nails, and they loaded up Joanne, and there was a pilot named Bill Powell that was a missionary pilot, and he was going along just because he could tell the helicopter pilot how to land and, you know, where to go. And so there was helicopter pilot, flight crew, Bill, Joanne, and there was also Dr. Lim, of course, and Doming, who was Amma's son, talked about him before, and he was flying home from college for a break. And so they were all in this helicopter, and they were all so excited. They were heading home, and they were going to build a hospital. And Joanne was thinking, man, as she saw Doming, she was praying for him. Because he was a Christian, but he wasn't, like, really committed to God. And she just wanted him to be more committed. And here's this doctor coming back, and oh, such an answer to prayer. And they were flying 30 minutes back, and here they were in Balengu territory. And Bill said, right over there by the school, land right there in the playground. But all of a sudden, as they went down, something went wrong. And the mountains closed in, the chopper lost. They couldn't power it, they couldn't control it anymore. The blades were spinning, they hit a betel nut tree, and branches flew all over the place. The next thing you knew, they were falling down in a ravine, and tons of buildings, they hit the ground, tons of building supplies all over the place, bags of cement ripped open, and Bill Powell was able to punch out the window and get out of the helicopter, and the flight crew ran out, and they started running. They realized, oh no, there's a fire, and there's airline fuel gushing out here, and fire! But Bill said, no, Joe and the doctor and Doming are still inside. Fire!